Okay, perfect.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. We are here with Alli Trussell from Wunderkind.co. And Alli Trussell is the Chief of Staff at Wunderkind. They're one of the fastest growing SaaS and marketing firms in the United States. She is an expert in communications, people management, culture, and performance. We are going to be talking about the future of work, managing relationships, digital marketing, so much more. So Alli, glad to be talking to you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you. I'm excited to be talking to you. So, there's a bunch of different things we could talk about or not talk about, but what has you excited, passionate, fired up the last 6 to 12 months?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm fired up about Omicron. I'm just kidding. There's so much. I think that we've been through a wacky, wild 18 months, 2 years. I don't know what time is anymore. But there's a lot of innovation that's coming out of that, right? We've seen a world we totally didn't recognize. We saw another version of a world we totally didn't recognize. We've seen this crazy talent surge, this hyper competition in the talent marketplace. But I think out of that comes some real innovation. You have to be a good company that people want to work for. It's no longer you have competitive pay and decent benefits. There's also this emotional connection to work. There's been this total loss of control. And so I think there's this real emotional connection to taking a new job that we haven't seen. And that's a harder thing to combat from an attrition perspective, where you really have to align to people's values. And I'm a huge proponent of that. I think you have to continue to be on the cutting edge of talent development to stay ahead of the curve.
Well, yeah, it seems like things have gotten even more fast paced than they were before with all the remote work and it's more accepted, it's less cliche. And growing up and being in college, I always knew a few people like that who would be really good at playing the game, and they'd ace their job interviews. They'd be hopping from job to job, not because they were incompetent, but because they were just kind of on the ladder and on their way up. And they had all these kind of unspoken skills, right? They were good at technical writing, and they could answer questions, and they could solve problems. They can do all these things. And so, but I imagine that with things happening so quickly, some people are wondering well, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What are the things to be doing to sort of keep up in everything that's changed?
Mm-hmm. I think what you're talking about when you're talking about those people who can just go through life and every person they talk to, they just have this magical spell over. I think I feel that way about people who speak with a lot of passion, who really like what they do, who have a lot of curiosity about the world. And I don't think those are necessarily fake things. I think those are people who tend to get bored very quickly. I put myself in that category. I'm constantly flopping from one thing to another. So I think as far as how do people keep up, if you're wanting to switch jobs, I think it's find out what drives you and really, really lean into that curiosity. I personally would so much rather hire someone who is passionate, driven, and curious about what they're going to be doing than somebody who is cookie cutter perfect from a resume perspective. I don't really like to screen on resumes. My resume is not that cool. And I have a job that I love, and I've been decently successful in it. So I personally don't really measure people by their resumes. I measure people by who shows up at that interview and what they bring to the table. So that's one side of the coin. And then I think the flip side is not that hard or not that different if you're a company, right? You have to make sure that you're putting people where their passion is, making sure that you understand your employees. Do they like what they're doing? Are they in the right job? That's something that I constantly look for. If we have somebody who I know is smart, I know is super driven, they like the company, but something's just not quite working. Maybe try that puzzle piece on a different side of the puzzle. Maybe they need to be in marketing and they're currently in sales. Maybe they're not loving being client facing, but they're super creative and they just want to do that in a more behind the scenes way. So I think it's just really examining. I think you have to match people and passion. And when you're not doing that, you're not going to keep people very long, and you're not going to get the right people in the right places.
Well, that's a lot to think about. And what you're making kind of triggering in my brain is 20 years ago, I was a programmer and just doing, coding and computer stuff. And things evolve from thing to thing. And I have my own business and I have my own products. In the last year, I've taken on 10 full-time employees. And there's kind of that the fighting the boredom, as you said, but then also trying to catch the lightning and to also stay consistent in things and stay focused on things, but also not let your boredom get the best of you. And I can definitely relate to what you're talking about as far as having people who are being the right fit. because like a lot of what I hire people for these days is like for a lot of like little writing jobs and things like that. And so I just kind of let them loose. I say, we'll do a quick conversation, quick interview, but then just like work for a few days and let's see what comes back and let's see how you like it. And you're also making me think that I had a person who like just quit. And I don't have like a ton of turnover, but I had this person who quit after working with us for about a year, and he was bored. He had like a part-time job for Amazon in addition to the writing he was doing for us. And I think he wanted to do some like really advanced stuff. And we were like, well, at the moment, we don't have any like super advanced like marketing positions for you. We just hired you for this writing thing. And that it felt like there was like a little bit of a lack of communication there. But I also feel like neither one of us were really butthurt with him parting ways from us, because it was like, there's more fish in the sea. Where we filled his spot in a couple of days, and he went off to bigger and better things. So it's really, and it also feels like the whole job loss thing or quitting or changing jobs isn't as catastrophic as it used to be, right? It used to be bad news. Now it can be a good thing.
It totally can. And it's interesting. I mean, you're bringing up an interesting point. A lot of the people that I've been talking to when I'm interviewing people, I tend to ask like, why did you take this call? Granted, it's a lot easier to take a call in a virtual world. You're not like making up some weird excuse to like leave midday and take this long extended lunch, and like you're dressed a little bit more nicely than you normally are. So it's not as obvious. And a remarkable number of people just say, I'm not challenged anymore. Like I'm looking for that next challenge. I'm looking for that next opportunity. It's not usually anything negative about the place that they are currently working. It's just that they want to be challenged in a new way. And so I actually think that's like the number one thing that you need to start combating if you are a company and you're looking at retaining your people. I think, as much as it's in your means. I work at a decently big company. So if I really can sense, or someone tells me, I really actually, as a manager, I try to get people to tell me if they're bored. And I try to make sure that like when I'm meeting with them, I really assess out like long-term, what do they want to do? And what are they curious about? Like what outside of their job are they curious about? And is there a way that I can put a little bit of that into their job? And if I can't, can I let them shadow someone? Can I let them like hang out with somebody who is doing maybe what they want to do in the future? Like maybe I can't put that into their job today, but if there's a way that I can set them up with somebody to teach them something new, sometimes that's enough.
And do you think, is there the fear of like, say you're that person that's curious, that wants more, that asks, well, can I take more on? Is there the concern of like taking on so much that then you become like one of the few people that's actually doing the work? Like sometimes I have those flashbacks to like, remember the group projects in school when you get paired with like 3 or 4 people and you were the only one doing the work and everyone was doing like the bare minimum, if not less, because they knew that someone would have to take up the slack. Like I feel like I'm thinking back to like when I was doing 9-to-5 stuff. I would worry about that, right? I would say, well, I want to learn these new skills. I want to take these new things on, but I don't want to have to like double my job for the same pay. And then everyone else says, oh, well, Robert's the guy who can get all the work done. We'll all just sit back. Is there a concern or like a hesitation with people in going that route?
I think that's probably fair. And I'm sure that there is. I can only tell you from my perspective that when I'm like giving people stretch projects or stretch goals, they're high performers. And I think a key component of being a high performer, I mean, granted, like I totally get the group work analogy. Part of being a high performer probably means their communication skills are pretty good. And I think it's also on the manager to be someone that people can communicate with. And if people are expressing interest in something that's a little bit outside of their job or like an extra project, my response is usually like, hey, yeah, you can take that on. It can't be at the expense of anything that you are, directly paid to do. And, tell me if it gets overwhelming. This is a stretch project for a reason. It's not something that I'm like evaluating you on from a performance perspective. This should be additional. It should be fun. It should be about your growth, but it shouldn't be about overtaxing yourself, because a burnt out high performer is not what I want. I want, healthy, excited, high performers. But I think that you have to have a good relationship with your manager. And I think for me, like, I'm certainly not a perfect manager. I could get a lot better at a lot of things, but I do think I'm approachable. And I think if you're that, there should be less of a risk of people worrying so much about taking on so much that they might collapse.
And where do you think people are like missing the boat these days with this communication? Because you're talking about, be approachable, but avoid burnout. And when I think about like communicating in the workplace, you're making me think about back when I'd work for a company, and someone would do the good old send me an email and then call me and to tell me they sent me an email, and just like a lot of wasted time. But I felt like I really shined in the area of like, if I learned some new skill, I'd record like a screen capture and like post it somewhere, and like writing an article or like making a short book about little things I learned. Like I kind of enjoy doing those things, but I didn't enjoy the just what seemed like wasted time. But then you wonder, well, is it wasted time because it like keeps the relationship with my higher up working, but then also then I don't want to be so responsive on emails that I don't get done. So, and then it drives me crazy even just thinking about it. I'm not even sure if I'm asking the question right. So I guess to circle back to what I was saying, like what are people doing right and what are people doing wrong as far as this whole communication thing?
Well, I can only tell you what I do, and I can tell you like some like overarching thematic things that I think work really, really well, and some things that I don't think work as well. So I tend to be a pretty open person. My background is in performing. I certainly, like, you can look at my face and you know exactly how I'm feeling at any given moment. I can't really mask a lot up here. And so I think it really, I sort of had to change my management style when we went into a hybrid world, and the world was turned upside down and people were scared, and people are averse to change, but they're also pretty adaptable. And so we went through several series of different changes. And so whereas I think I used to be, I'd start at the top of a meeting with performance, now I really try to start with like an actual check-in. I am adamant that people take PTO and that they do not respond on PTO. We're a high, fast-paced tech company, which means that your days can be long, and you probably are getting 10 emails a minute and you're getting 23 Slacks. And so when you're off, I want you to be off. And I also do that. So I like try to practice what I preach so that they feel comfortable doing the same. I think that is one piece people miss in communication. If you're telling your team like, take time off, rest, recuperate, you don't have to answer an email at 1:07 a.m. If you're not resting on PTO, if you're not recuperating, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're the one sending the email at 1:07 a.m. in the morning, it's really, really hard for your team to believe that that is the behavior that they want you to emulate. So I think practicing what you preach is really, really important. And I think, it's always worked for me to be a bit more personal. I talk about myself. I try not to keep everything shut in. If I'm having a really, really stressful day, I'll try to do it in a joking way, but I'll be like, y'all, my head is about to explode. So just forgive me if I'm like jumbling my words. And I think that's the kind of stuff that just tells your team that you can talk to them a little bit. I think people who are, I think people just like clarity. And so there have been times we've gone through several periods where like, it's been really hard. And I know my team is working extremely, extremely, extremely hard. And I will tell them at the beginning, like I had to tell my technical recruiting team today, because it is bonkers recruiting engineers out there. I had to tell them, I was like, I'm going to push you this quarter. You can always tell me if it's too much, but we have a massive rec load. So like my starting speed is going to be pushing you. Tell me if you need a break. Tell me if there's something going on in your life. You don't have to tell me what, but I'm telling you right now how I'm going to operate with you, but I'm also giving you permission to tell me when you need me to let my foot off the gas a little bit. And I'm also going to do it with you. Like, I'm not just going to be like, yo, run and do this. So I think it's about being a team player, giving them clarity and giving them the space to talk and actually doing what you say you're going to do. I don't think it's very different from like being a good friend.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was thinking in my head of, as far as like the analogy. It's like you're kind of when you're like a good friend, you tell, you're honest about what's happening. You don't overshare, you don't over complain, but there's definitely some kind of middle ground there where you can be a person and share just enough and kind of be honest, and so that way the person that you're working with knows what your state of mind is without dumping 52 minutes about how the family's doing.
Right. Unless the story is really entertaining. No, I'm kidding. But I think it's also about people need boundaries. I think it's really hard for a lot of people. It's really hard for me. And so, making sure that you're helping your team to set good boundaries, because I believe if you're not burnt out and you do have like some good boundaries, you're probably doing better work because you're probably a little bit happier. And I think happier people do better work. So helping them, I have a really awesome team. A lot of them are, this is like their first or second job. And so making sure that they have the ability to sort of, set their boundaries, make sure that like when they're working, they're doing awesome work. And I have extremely high standards and I have high expectations, but also making sure that like it doesn't become their entire life, because this is a part of life. It's not your entire life. And I do think that's a lot of what we're seeing in the talent marketplace too. Nobody wants a Zoom call to be their entire life.
Right. And it's like, there's that just staring at the screen so long. Like I'm staring at a screen on a Zoom call, then I'm staring at my phone, and then it's just screens all over the place. And there's definitely that fear of, and you hear those horror stories, right? Like in the US and in Japan, there's just like working yourself to death, and who wants that? But you also want to keep up. And so this podcast we're on here, Alli, it's called The Marketer of the Day, and the theme of it is kind of becoming more of what you are, and being a better person, and speaking up and standing out, and not just being just a person that has just this job profession, but kind of having these other skills. And so kind of having all that in mind, what do you want us to be paying attention about you and your company today? You have this Wunderkind company. And so I guess like why are you here? What are you promoting?
Yeah.
What do you want us to notice?
Cool. So I love Wunderkind. Obviously I'm biased. I've worked here for a long time. But at the root of it, we connect great brands with people. And I think there's something really special about that. We do it in publishing with some of like the top news outlets in the world. We do it with e-commerce brands. We try to make the internet what you want it to be. We try to make shopping fun and easy for you, and to make it an experience. And I think in a world where we have lost so many experiences over the past couple of years, even something personalized in my inbox feels really good. And so we're trying to make sure that these brands can find their way to people, and you can have those brands that you really celebrate, those brands that you really love. We also want to let marketers be marketers. I don't think a bunch of people went to college to get a marketing degree to like become an expert in a tech stack, which is really what it's turned into. Like you have to be like chief, 27 vendors and they're all tied together. We try to make that really, really easy for you. We try to do the nitty gritty so that you can be out there promoting a brand, thinking about the story that you want to tell a brand. And that's why I think people got into marketing. Our CEO is a marketer by trade. And I think that really shines through in our product. And so I'm really excited about that, but I'm also really excited about what we do on the people front. Firmly believe that the people are the secret sauce of Wunderkind. They're the key ingredient. And over this past year, we've launched individualized coaching across the company so that people really can, sit down with somebody who is internal, but they are, for all intents and purposes, an objective third party. They can really talk about what they want out of their career, maybe where those roadblocks are, and get that chance to kind of work through some stuff. And so that we can catch, like, maybe this person is bored. Maybe this person could do 10 times more, but they're not set up in the right avenue, or maybe they need a stretch project. Trying to like talk through some of that and give people more opportunities for internal mobility is really important to me. And we've done a lot of work on our DEI front. We have phenomenal ERGs across the company who've affected a lot of change over the last couple of years. There's also been a ton of social upheaval and social unrest. And I think that like we have been able to provide a really safe space for people. And I love that we hire creative people. We certainly don't hire boring here. And there's a real diversity of thought and background in our employee base. And that's something we're celebrating, in my opinion.
And it shows just in your energy and in your enthusiasm. You come across to me as a person that is excited to get to work and to do the challenging, the hard things. You're not just clocking in, clocking out. You're having fun. You're kind of doing new things. And I think that we all need to tap into some of that. And so what type of person should be contacting you and taking action on this? Because there's all kinds of people on the internet listening to podcasts. But if someone's listening and they're like, okay, this is me, I need to go and reach out to Alli and Wunderkind and take the next step. Who is the person that should be taking action, and what action should they be taking?
All right, all you weirdos out there, I need you to go to wunderkind.co Not Wunderkind.com. It is Wunderkind.co. Someday we are going to get that coveted M, but we don't have it today. So go to Wunderkind.co, go to our careers page. We are looking for people who want to have fun, who want to work hard, and who love what they do. I guarantee you we're hiring in what you love to do, because we are hiring everywhere. I want people who are curious, people who, people who love brands. If you have like a brand and you're like, I love this brand, and I want other people to like have this experience of like, oh my gosh, I love this thing so much. If you want to help give people what they love, come work for us. If you want to, be around colleagues that are going to be lifelong friends of yours, I promise you, come work for us. And yeah, if you want to laugh a lot and solve really challenging problems and every day not be the same, go to Wunderkind.co.
Fantastic. Well, you heard the checklist, the criteria. If you fit any of those boxes, go to, or if you're someone who's like, well, I don't fit in a box, but those things appeal to me, then the place to go is.
If you fit in water, if you fit in a circle, if you fit in a box or a squiggly line, good.
In some kind of anything, that is Wunderkind.co. Because even I'm like, wait, how do I spell that? So Wunderkind.co, that is the place to go right now. Don't wait, because there will always be some other distraction. You'll say, oh yeah, remember when I listened to that podcast and it all sounded exciting and I wanted to take the next step in my journey and not just kind of have tomorrow be the same as yesterday. Well, the place to go is Wunderkind.co. And any final parting words of advice here, Alli, before we call it quits here?
I mean, be happy in what you do. It's one of those things that you have a little bit of control over. And so if you're not happy at your job, go to Wunderkind.co. No, I'm just kidding. I hope you're happy at your jobs, but you can still go to Wunderkind.co.
Yes, if you're not happy or you feel like something's missing, maybe there's maybe it's a sign, maybe there's a reason. And so what do you have to lose? Investigate, see what can happen when you go to Wunderkind.co, and we will see you there.